Gemini. This is a reading, Gemini. I'm doing your reading for August 2026. We'll see what turns up. This is for Gemini Sun or Moon or Rising, Gemini Venus, North Node, Gemini, wherever you've got, you know, in your natal chart. Gemini might be big in your natal chart. So let's see what we've got. Starting the Ace of Pentacles. Cool. Huh? So that's right. You've got some, you've got windfall, you've got money coming in. Money coming your way. Also, meaning that you're working on that. Could be your focus right now. The material world could be something you're very focused on with the Hierophant here. Taurus energy. Something you're doing, perhaps you're looking at doing things traditionally, doing something related to your, could be related to your background, your traditions, your upbringing. I'm feeling something relating to your upbringing, something relating to you've got Aries energy, you've got the Emperor. It's your, I feel like it's something that your mind, you're going to be, I feel like you're going to be digging deep into your psyche. Your psyche, what you're going to be, I feel as if you're going to have a lot of success if you tune in and dig into your psyche and understand yourself on a deeply psychological level. Could be psychology that some of you might be looking at, interested in. Studying psychology, doing a course in psychology, maybe even counselling, course in counselling. Yeah, because it's about your intellect. You have the Ace of Swords here. So you have the Ace of Swords, the Hierophant, the Emperor, the Ace of Pentacles. Wow. Because Gemini, naturally you have a huge mental capacity. You know, you're ruled by Mercury, planet of communication. And your, not just capacity, but agility. So you can talk, you could talk, I was going to say, could talk the hind legs off a donkey. I don't know where that come from, but you could do that. You could do that. You know, strange expression. Got to research where that came from. That must be, yeah. So you could, but that's because you have such mental agility. You can switch up. You can talk about any subject usually because you know a little about. You can often know like a lot about. You can know a little about a lot of subjects because mercurial energy has mercurial energy switches a lot. Has to, you know, gets bored easily. Gemini trait gets bored easily. That subject, now bored of that subject, move to this one, this one, this one, and they often are interlinked. And so when I'm describing your mental agility, you have the capacity to just flit like a butterfly, you know, from flower to flower, picking up information around place. And then you that's why you're incredibly entertaining usually in social events, because you have all these little pockets of information. You know, any subject comes up, usually you've got, you know, you've got something on that. You've got something you've learned about that. You have some kind of comment that you can make on that because you've looked at that, you know, maybe not deeply, but you've looked at it before, so you can, you know, your conversation and your communication skills are usually, you know, well, they're very on point most of the time. And I feel as if there's something to do with you, your psyche, your intellect, your understanding of human psychology. Geminis can often make very good counsellors, people who help other people through discussion. Or thinking about, I had one of my counsellors after years of in and out therapy. One of my counsellors was a Gemini, and he was probably the you know, in terms of, you know, having to have counselling and therapy after you know, particular event. He was very interesting in that he knew, I think because he was a very good conversationalist and very good at listening, he made a great counsellor. Sadly, he's passed away now. You know, and also at one point in his life, he was also a house husband. You know, another point in his career, he was doing something completely different, something in Glastonbury, I believe, something obscure. Obscure. And you know, and he was like one of these very diverse people who, I mean, they say jack of all trades, master of none, but that's really unfair, and I don't go with that with Gemini. But I feel as if with the Seven of Wands here that you, you in your recent past, it feels to me as if you were working somewhere, doing something, living a certain lifestyle that you possibly got just fed up with. And you got sort of fed up with maybe even having to sort of protect your ideas or protect something about your working life, or you didn't feel particularly 100% secure there, something like that. I'm pretty sure this deck is upside down. No, it's not. A couple of reversed cards, but I don't read cards in reversal because I think it's pointless. And you know, the work, I feel as if you've already been, you know, understood what it's like to have, you know, carved a career, have, you know, had some success. I think you're at the moment, Gemini, looking at how you will sort of gain anything, some material, if you change direction or if you consider a different path. You know, there's going to be, perhaps you're journaling, perhaps some of you are journaling. I think for Gemini it's always a good idea to journal because, you know, with so many often ideas buzzing around and, you know, maybe subjects of interest you might have. Journaling can help kind of, let's say, relieve the mental clutter. And give you an idea of literally what's happening, you know, what's going on, what are you thinking, what are you feeling, how have things affected you. It doesn't have to be a lot. If you, I think, really is a case of daily, it's a case of doing it regularly, but it's not about the quantity, it's about how often you do it. It takes 14 days to create a habit. So, of course, the first 14 days, or break a habit even, the first, and I know that one. So I think if you were to practice it like on a daily basis, make it a sort of, maybe put it in like in a little sort of slot during the day where you know, that's routinely put in there at that time or around about that time, not rigidly doing, you know, must be done by 7 o'clock. You know, have that time maybe evening, something like that, when everything's a bit more quiet, you could just put pen to paper and write something. But I understand it's also difficult sometimes when you you know, you cannot stop, and you need to be mindful of how much you write so that you're not exhausted. But just jotting down things, little things, and also it could, because you'd be surprised what comes out that, you know, you've managed to sort of straighten out by writing it out, if you see what I mean. And you've also got Queen of Cups, so this is very receptive energy. This is perhaps you understanding how to be more, you know, Queen of Cups to me is someone who is a counsellor, who will sit and will listen, not without judgment. You know, be receptive to other people, what other people are saying, as opposed to being like the Queen of Wands, who is sort of more outward going and more kind of about action and, you know, go-getting and that kind of energy. You know, the Queen of Cups is a lot more, I mean, you could say archetypally feminine energy. What is feminine, masculine? You know, we're all both. So that's the kind of sort of stance you were in, being receptive, being more compassionate as well. But there's an end of a cycle, because you have a Death card here, so I feel as if there's an end of a cycle and you're looking at new ideas, and I'm feeling like you're looking at new ideas that are to do with, you know, the psyche. Perhaps you've been looking back over your personal history, you know, your life history, because they're, you know, ending of cycle. You could be at a significant age, like you could be Saturn returns, going, you know, 30, 28 to 31, sort of that period, life-changing, often results in changing directions, going somewhere, changing up your whole life. It can do, Saturn returns. And then, of course, then when you're 30 years later, Saturn returns again, so Saturn has returned back into, you know, your natal chart, where at the time you're born, it's done the whole 30-year cycle. So 59 to sort of 61, 62, 58 to 61, that kind of era. It peaks at the actual pinnacle of 60, and in this case of 30 as well. So perhaps some of you are in one of those particular significant ages where you are faced with often, you know, significant life changes. And there's nothing you can do about it, because Saturn comes in, and Saturn is often about karma, and Saturn has got a lot to do with you learn, you know, it's like the headmaster, I think, of the Saturn of the planets. It's like the headmaster, strict headmaster, coming in and sort of laying down the law a bit, and there's nothing you can do. You can't wiggle out of it, you know. You've got to sit there or be there and go with these life changes that are occurring, because it's like there isn't any other way. You know, Saturn doesn't just sit you down, but will keep you in that classroom until you've learnt, until you can go, you know. And that's usually a 3-year cycle. So some of you might be going through that, and there's, you know, because death cards popped up here, so it feels like the end of a cycle, beginning of a new one. And also linked, I feel linked with and also maybe linked with traditions, that you've been following certain traditions, and now Saturn's returned, or you're at a significant point, or something shifted, that you're now having to look at the way you've been doing things. Kind of, especially you've got the seven of staves, the 7 of wands, you know, that this is also sort of maybe making you question how you've been doing things, and maybe how you now have to change the way you're doing things. And it's to do with psychology. I feel it's to do with your psyche, your what you know, recognising things that perhaps you hadn't seen, and now you're understanding things more clearly. With the Page of Wands, you know, it's sort of early doors. You know, you're not, it's like you're not in full action mode. You're just sort of creeping around the edges, seeing what's, you know, it's a bit like looking in the box, or looking at that particular path, understanding more about, like a eureka moment, but at the same time you're not rushing into, you know, anything. You're still, it's like you're still accumulating information and working out. You know, I suppose Gemini, you're a bit like a neurodivergent. You know, because of your mercurial energy and the way you can have so many different things, ideas and focuses happening all at once. Taking notes as you go, you know, could be very helpful. But I feel like this new cycle that started, Death card here, is all about you understanding as well, understanding your past, understanding your history, coming to terms with it, almost kind of wanting to give your past a great big cuddle. You know, this is I can't not have my past. You know, I can't change that, but I can certainly do something with it. You know, make it into something. Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Swords, by being, you know, honest with yourself. By understanding it's the end of a cycle and beginning of a new one, and what are you going to do when now you're approaching this new cycle, you know, because you're not doing it different, you're doing it differently. So, and the High Priestess, which is you're tuning in, you're really tuning in to your intuition more than you possibly ever have, and acting on it, the High Priestess here. Could be balancing out, you know, recognising your dark side, maybe looking at your past, looking at all the dark stuff, and asking yourself questions about, you know, why did this happen, you know, what was that about, what was that about when this happened, and it was dark and it wasn't that nice, and maybe I wasn't very nice to certain people, that kind of thing, and why not, and then you then you find yourself asking yourself certain questions which is about your own sort of psychoanalysis of yourself, understanding yourself, you know, through self-analysis, I suppose. And Gemini, you're not shy of things like that. You know, you are, again, analytical, like Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini, and both those two signs are known for their analytical abilities. They do it differently, but they still have that, you know, ability when they, you know, want to understand or work something out. And it's great to tap into. It's a great, and not everyone's into sort of wanting to analyse, you know, certain things. They want to keep it all surface, and I'm sure that there's a myth surrounding people who go into analysis or go into, you know, have counselling. I know Woody Allen, for a start, he said that if he didn't have counselling, if he hadn't spent the majority of his adult life in and out of therapy, having counselling or regular counselling, he believes that he would, he'd no longer, he wouldn't exist. And I know there's this myth surrounding it, saying that, you know, you're self-obsessed if you're into self-analysis, anything like that, or counselling, which is awful. It's a terrible, terrible outlook. It's a terrible outlook, and I've heard that. And it just means you want to know, you know, you want to know, and you're prepared to look at yourself, and you're prepared to understand, you know, how your past shapes you and your future and things like this. Not, and I think anybody, my daughter told me the other day that her, you know, someone she knows is going to have a little bit of counselling, and you know, I was really pleased, and you know, in your 20s I started having counselling in my 20s, and I was pleased immediately. I think I may have commented, there isn't anyone in this whole world who wouldn't benefit from some counselling. Absolutely, there's no exception to the rule, because all it can do is help you. That's what it's there for. And it's quite scary the first time you go. I know people who've started courses of therapy and counselling and they've lasted a couple of weeks and no, it's not for me. What they mean is, no, I don't want to face the issues that I could face and you know, openly discuss and do a lot of crying. First time I went to counselling, crying quite a lot after every session, quite uncomfortable. I'm different, Gemini. This is one of your strengths. You're different. You have different faces. You are the twins. You are known to be. Bipolar. No, you are known to be schizophrenic, as I hear some people call Gemini. Geminis are schizos. It's because you have these two, your dual sign, like Libra, like Sagittarius, like who else is there who's dual? Quite a few. No, hang on. Libra, Sagittarius, Gemini. Anyways, sure there's another two. I'm different. So, you know, this is your, you know, your strength, that you can, you're mutable obviously, that you can be these two people. You know, you can be almost like, depending on, I mean, light-hearted, you know, fun to be around comes across as one of your, I say your one side. And then another side of you can be, you know, analytical, sometimes a bit calculating. You know, you have an ability to be quite, I wouldn't say deep, but you have the ability to be quite profound as well. You know, thoughtful. So, you know, being different as well is a blessing, to be different. And I don't know how you interpret that, but it can be interpreted in many ways. And if you think about it, to be real, everybody is different. Everybody, you know, different, because no singular person is like another, not even twins. You know, I know twins, and I've come across quite a few twins in my life, and they're not the same, even if they're identical twins. They're not. It's not possible, you know, nature and nurture, you know. So remember that, and you're free to start making some different moves. I feel like, you know, different moves, different things, free to start maybe exploring a little bit more. I feel, you know, connected to psychology, the human psyche, your own one as well, your own. And you're complicated. You can be complicated. And that complication is like sometimes how you feel, and sometimes it's how you might sort of, you know, judge yourself and knock yourself down a bit. You know, tell yourself, oh, I'm so complicated, which isn't actually an insult. It isn't actually a down, you know, a negative. You know, I am complicated. Probably it means I'm complex. You know, maybe there's been complications in your life. Maybe you're dealing with current complications. A lot of us are. You know, life is a puzzle sometimes. It's not, you know, and there can be complications occurring in your life, which you will be able to sort out because you have an understanding of already what complicated looks like, and how it's a case of problem solving, which you're good at, Gemini, and not just problem solving, but being able to, you feel proud of yourself, you know, when you solve a problem through analysis, for example. I know it gives you a bit of a buzz, Gemini, because again it's a case of you having applied your intellect, and you're an air sign, so of course that's your groove, in the intellect, ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication. So I feel as if you need to really understand as well your methods of communication. Perhaps because you've got the death card here and there has been a change in circumstances for you. You might find yourself communicating differently. Some of you've moved. Some of you've actually physically moved from somewhere, and you're around a whole different bunch of people, and you're interacting with them differently. Because Gemini being mutable, you can go into a group of people and almost like behave like them, or be almost like you adapt to that particular environment, and then another particular set of people who have a completely different even a social strata, and you adapt to that because that's your environment, being a mutable sign. And so there could have been quite a lot of adapting you've been doing as well, I'm feeling like, but you have hope. And like, as if this reminds me of a hermit card, I feel as if you're also tentatively, because you also got the Page of Wands, which is more sort of moving forwards, taking action slowly, tentatively if you like, and you've got that lantern lighting your way, but not not like a super beam into the distance. It's just step by lighting, so you can see your path a little bit at a time, which it can be very healthy not to look too far ahead. Just to know the steps you have to take, and being in the present, of course, witnessing the present, making sure you stay in the present moment. As you do things, ground yourself, ground your energy, maybe practice meditation or yoga to keep you in that moment, not allowing your thoughts to rush too far ahead, and be thinking too far down the line, and also belonging. And you're looking for perhaps more soulmates. You're finding your soul family. I feel like this is a beautiful card. That's so inspiring, isn't it? And I feel as if you could be calling in a new soul tribe. Meeting other people who you resonate with on a soul level. I feel that, Gemini. And also you have, through forgiveness you find peace. And I feel as if there's a lot of forgiveness here as well, Gemini, that you could be looking back, seeing things in your past, and you want to feel that you need to sort of forgive yourself for anything. Your misspent youth. Just kidding. But that sort of thing, and then being able to extend that forgiveness. If you can't forgive yourself first, you can't possibly forgive anyone else. That's not even doable. Non-negotiable. So forgiving yourself first, perhaps is something you're doing, working on, tuning in with. Now this is time for a crystal that could help. Moss agate. Okay, it's another agate. Chalcedony. That would be chalcedony. That would be what the Latin for. Anyway, it's far too complicated. So moss agate is a mineral with green streaks. Chalcedony mineral. That's the mineralogy, chalcedony, with green streaks. So it's good for liberation, freeze from heaviness if you've been feeling under pressure recently, and any sort of pressure and what? Straint. Makes conscious, and promotes communication and alert mind. So that's what you should be wearing. That gels with your personality quite well, doesn't it? Cleanses the tissues, the lymph and the respiratory tract, helps with coughs, colds and stubborn infections, and reduces fever. So detox, a good stone for detoxing. You might be thinking of detoxing, but liberation and liberation from heaviness as well, making you conscious, promoting your communication and your alert mind, is great, is the one for you. There's another one here I feel that you could use. Yeah, clear quartz. Yeah, so clear quartz would work for you, either the Herkimer or the self-healer. Harmony quartz, mineralogy, self-healed crystal. Indications: amendment, helps come to terms with blows of fate, resolves conflicts in relationships, and makes it possible that positive lessons are learned from painful experiences. Self-healing power, also infections and fractures. But clear quartz, the harmony quartz, could be good. So I'd say moss agate. I did have a bit of that a while ago. When I used to tumble stones, I used to polish stones when I was a kid. I had a stone tumbling thing, and I definitely had some of that. I don't have any more. I lost on the travels. But there, so the moss agate and the clear quartz generator as well. Oh no, it's the Herkimer quartz, it's the harmony quartz, but I'm now being drawn to the generator crystal. That's the most commonly used crystal, which isn't here. It must be in water somewhere. Yeah, equal facets. Yeah, it's usually got 6. It's a pointed one. A lot of crystal shops, healing shops will have this one. That's the one that's the clear quartz. You can't mistake it because it is this point, the pointed generating bit. 6 equal facets. So you'll know it because it's got six facets. I don't necessarily think they're equal, but they are 6 facets, and that's for promoting poise and confidence, uprightness, aids in concise expression of thoughts and words, directing energy flow to extremities as well, so it's good for bad circulation. Not bad circulation that isn't on, up to par. Concise expression of thoughts and words. So clear quartz could be good. I think clear quartz is just universally good for anybody to have. Oh, here it is, hiding there. Yeah, so clear quartz is sort of like, that's the kind of regular 6-faceted one. Easy to access. Anyway, Gemini, that's your reading for August. I hope you found it helpful. Do like and share, or leave a comment. Leave comments if you have any comments. I like to read, good or bad. Yeah, thank you for watching. Take care. Wishing you all the best for August. All right, bye for now.